Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. We're going to do our daily technical analysis update of oil and natural gas. Today, we'll start with oil. We've got a small little down day here. I'm going to jump right into the charts. Get me out of here. We have a small little down day today. A little bit of a wick at the top, which means we ran higher and encountered some sellers, and it sold back off. We're at the support line. We still have very small down days, which means the buyers are still in control at this moment. Are we going to head higher tomorrow? We'll find out. We'll find out where this goes tomorrow. If we break back below this line, or if we take off and move on higher. So we'll find out. Natural gas is experiencing a little bit of a sell-off here. We tried rolling higher, and then we encountered sellers, and it's being sold off. So the selling pressure remains in natural gas. This one is XOP. We're getting a little bit of a sell-off today. The sellers are there. They want to bring this lower. So let them bring it lower for a little bit and let's rest a little bit before moving on up. SM Energy, a little bit of a small down day, some wick at the top. Tried running, but came back and sold off because of oil, obviously. But it looks okay. Nothing really too much damage there. CDEV's the same thing. It's really just battling back and forth here between the buyers and sellers. Crew Energy getting a little bit of a sell-off. This is a bearish engulfing, probably going to head a little bit lower. It finished quite strong too, to the downside. I think we're still going to head lower. It looks like in Callon Petroleum that we've got kind of almost like a pattern going here of a wedge going higher. Now, is this wedge here connecting this point there? And usually when you have things that are pointing upward, it's not contracting though. If you break, I'd look for a break to the downside possibly, which means we could head a little bit lower in Callon and some of these other ones if the price of oil goes down. We're seeing a little bit of selling pressure in Athabasca Oil Corporation. Just looking, I mean, it's kind of a broken uptrend line. We could head a little bit lower in Athabasca. Recaf getting sold off a little bit today, popping a little bit lower here. Did they kill our cheetah? I don't know, maybe. Maybe, we'll see. Looking at Northern Oil and Gas, this is a kind of a contraction up. It did break to the downside today. It did not hold on. I would suspect that we have a little bit further downside out of this pattern. It's not going to be a big downside move, I don't think. It's a small pattern. Small patterns mean small moves. Crescent Point does have some selling pressure up here, so I would suspect that we could head a little bit lower. GTE, a little bit of a wick at the top here again. We're encountering selling pressure. It could head a little bit lower. Tellurian is heading lower out of this pattern here, which is it's a flag pattern coming up, and then we're going to head lower here for Tellurian. Pedevco, this thing's looking okay. It's just chopping sideways for the most part. Oasis, a little bit of selling pressure up here. I do think that we could potentially head lower. And what I'm looking at in these days here, you know, it started here. We have this kind of big selling pressure there. We get another one there. We get another one there. They're starting to show up with these bearish engulfings, and they kind of add up where we could potentially head lower. Comstock Resources had a good sell-off today. So this one's getting sold off. It finished quite strong, good selling pressure, so it's probably going to head lower. This one's highly attached to natural gas. And if you want a natural gas pick, if this thing can head down to like $6, $6.80, $6.70, somewhere in this range down here, and you see it contract and start to head higher, I would be a buyer in it. SD Energy, again, we've broken this uptrend line, and we're heading lower. Strong close, still looks like we're going to head lower. Ring Energy is following suit, a little bit lower. Surge Energy looks like we're just trying to digest this massive move, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to digest all these moves, guys. They've had massive moves up in some of these companies. Tamarack Valley Energy's had a massive move. Still looks like the buyers are in control at the moment, but it does have a bearish ting to it. Bearish pattern here with this bearish engulfing, which means we could potentially head lower. OIH, this is the oil service companies. We broke out to the upside. We're kind of doing a retest. We'll see if this support line holds. TTI getting a little bit of a sell-off today. It tried running a little bit. It looks like our momentum is being lost a little bit. We could potentially be rolling over to have a short-term pullback. It's looking like that in a lot of these companies. Transocean's got it. Pump still looks like we're pumped up. Big buying pressure, smaller selling pressure still looks okay. EXTN coming down. Again, a little bit more selling pressure on the right-hand side there. We could have a short-term pullback. Valaris is still hanging in there. It's not a lot of huge selling pressure up here. I mean, we got some wicks at the top, which means there's sellers up here. So I think we're probably going to head sideways or stay above this guy. Maybe we do a little bit of a retest in that. MRM, this is MMA offshore. It's still looking good, moving sideways. Tidewater, we are sitting on top of the pattern with a little bit of a down day today. That one still looks fine. Next year, Oilfield Solutions, we're going to see a sell-off here, I think, and probably head a little bit lower. This thing has had a monster move from $3.50 all the way to $6 in like no time. So I suspect this is going to pull back a little bit. CHX, Champion X Corporation, a little bit of a sell-off there. Kind of looking at the big picture, though, we're still in this downtrend. We still have to break this downtrend for CHX. WHD looks like we're breaking to the upside on a monthly basis. It still looks quite bullish on a daily basis too. This is bullish engulfing, which means we could head higher. It is Han Solo of the group. Oceaneering International, a little bit down day today. It's a pretty small candlestick. We could be bottoming here soon. Noble Energy, again, a little bit more selling pressure today, heading lower. Price of oil is not helping. We could have a pullback. And HLX is pulling back off this breakout. Getting a little bit of a reversal move. We might come back a little bit more and test the breakout to do a full retest. So, I mean, that's what I'm seeing across the board. I've seen a little bit of weakness in the oil companies. I was kind of calling it yesterday. I was like, yeah, these things look tired. You can tell by the opening and closing prices contracting as you go up. And then you'll start seeing a little bit more volatility. You'll start putting wicks at the top of the candlesticks. And usually that means you want to have a little bit of a pullback. There's sellers in the stock. They're exiting the stock. And we might get a pullback here. And that's what we're seeing in a lot of these companies. We're getting wicks at the top. We're getting compression in the opening and closing price. I mean, some of them still look good. But we're seeing early signs of a potential, maybe a small pullback and a resting period before going higher again. Again, guys, this is something that I don't trade. I don't trade in and out. I probably wouldn't be a buyer here. We are pretty high in some of the exploration companies. Some of the oil service companies, I think, look pretty good. So the service companies is where I would be looking at the moment. Something like an HLX here, or an OII, or all these ones where they kind of break out and then they come back and do a retest. I buy that retest. So that's a low risk entry point that I usually do. And the energy service companies seem to be lagged behind the exploration production companies. So looking at it from a valuation standpoint, I still think the energy service companies at this point are pretty good value. And what potentially could come ahead of us is the exploration companies start making a whole bunch of money. They're going to have to, they cut back, they're going to fund it themselves. They have to first get a bunch of cash flow going. And then I think the cash will start flowing into the energy service sector, where they're going to provide, obviously, services for these production, exploration and production companies. So I think it's just delayed and lagged behind it by a little bit. And then remember, the hedges will also roll off. What oil companies and natural gas companies do is they hedge their production. They go and get derivatives contracts, and they'll say that we'll sell you oil or gas for a certain amount. They'll hedge it, and they'll say we'll lock in this price, so to speak. And if the oil prices and natural gas prices go above those hedges, they actually end up losing money versus the price that is quoted, because they have to sell it a certain portion of their portfolio at a certain price of whatever that hedge production is. So they can end up with some losses on that. And what's happening is those hedges are rolling off in 2022 for a large portion of the companies, and a large portion of their hedges are rolling off, and their other production will be at much higher prices. So the companies themselves, in terms of earnings per share, will continue to go higher when their hedges roll off as the oil price remains quite high. So that's what I'm seeing. If you guys enjoy the analysis, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.